You're speaking words that go unheard while others command rooms silently through powerful nonverbal communication that shapes perceptions, influences decisions, and creates magnetic presence before any words are spoken. Recognizing that nonverbal signals, including body language, facial expressions, vocal tone, spatial positioning, and micro-expressions, communicate more powerfully than verbal content, accounting for over 90% of communication impact. Knowing that mastering silent influence means developing the presence, charisma, and persuasive power that operates entirely through what you do not say, creating advantage in negotiations, relationships, leadership, and every human interaction. Understanding that nonverbal mastery is learnable, systematic skill, not innate gift, making influence without words accessible to anyone willing to study and practice proven techniques, and losing countless opportunities, career advancement, and relationship connection because unskilled nonverbal communication undermines your verbal messages, or worse, communicates weakness, uncertainty, or untrustworthiness, making nonverbal mastery essential for maximizing influence and impact. This nonverbal incompetence is systematically limiting your influence by ensuring that even excellent verbal content gets dismissed or ignored when delivered with weak, uncertain, or closed body language that contradicts spoken confidence. Destroying your credibility by sending mixed messages where words claim one thing while nonverbal signals communicate opposite, creating cognitive dissonance that listeners resolve by trusting nonverbal over verbal, limiting your leadership potential by failing to project the presence, authority, and confidence that inspire followership and respect regardless of actual competence, preventing deep connection in relationships by missing or misreading others' nonverbal emotional signals that reveal true feelings beneath spoken words, and ensuring that decades pass without developing the silent influence mastery that creates disproportionate impact in every interaction, making systematic nonverbal development essential. Mastering influence without words is not about manipulation or deception, but about aligning your nonverbal communication with your genuine intentions and authentic self, creating congruent, powerful presence. Not about memorizing tricks or adopting fake personas, but understanding universal nonverbal principles that enable strategic deployment across contexts. And not mysterious charisma, but systematic learnable skills. This audiobook teaches how to influence without saying a word through 10 strategic nonverbal mastery areas, including understanding nonverbal communication fundamentals, mastering power, posture, and presence, using eye contact for connection and authority, deploying strategic touch appropriately, controlling facial expressions deliberately, using space and proximity strategically, modulating vocal tone and pace, reading others' nonverbal signals accurately, mirroring and matching for rapport, and integrating all elements into authentic, powerful presence, making silent influence systematic, reliable, and transformative. Stop relying only on words and start mastering silent influence. Stop sending weak, contradictory signals and start projecting powerful, congruent presence. Implement 10 nonverbal strategies systematically, practice deliberately, and influence without saying a word through unwavering commitment, starting now. Chapter 1. Strategy 1. Understand nonverbal communication fundamentals. Chapter 1 establishes foundational understanding of nonverbal communication, revealing why mastering silent signals creates disproportionate influence compared to verbal content alone. The Marabian research provides the famous and often misunderstood statistic that communication impact comes approximately 55% from body language, 38% from vocal tone, pace, and other paralinguistic elements, and only 7% from the actual words spoken. While this specific breakdown applies primarily to communication of feelings and attitudes rather than factual information, the fundamental principle remains valid across contexts that nonverbal channels communicate more powerfully and more truthfully than verbal content because nonverbal signals operate largely below conscious awareness, making them harder to fake or control deliberately. Nonverbal dominates communication. Master the silent channels. Align signals or send mixed messages, undermining words. The communication channels taxonomy organizes nonverbal elements into distinct categories, each operating simultaneously to create total communication impact. Kinesics encompasses all body movement, including gestures, posture shifts, facial expressions, and general animation level. Proxemics governs use of space and interpersonal distance, including how close you stand to others and how you claim or yield physical territory. Haptics covers all touch communication, from handshakes to brief arm touches to longer embraces. Facial expressions communicate emotion more clearly, and universally than any other nonverbal channel. Eye behavior, including contact duration, gaze direction, and pupil dilation, signals attention, interest, dominance, and emotional state. Vocalics comprise all non-word vocal elements, including tone, pitch, pace, volume, and strategic use of pauses. Chronemics involve use of time, including punctuality, response speed, and willingness to wait. Understanding these distinct channels enables strategic deployment and accurate reading. The congruence principle establishes that when verbal and non-verbal messages conflict, recipients trust the non-verbal message over the verbal one because non-verbal signals are perceived as more honest and less subject to conscious manipulation. Persons saying they feel confident while displaying closed, defensive body language, avoiding eye contact, and speaking with rising, uncertain vocal inflection creates cognitive dissonance that listeners resolve by trusting the non-verbal signals indicating insecurity while dismissing the verbal claim of confidence. This mechanism means that developing verbal communication skills without corresponding non-verbal mastery creates minimal influence improvement because incongruent non-verbal signals undermine verbal content constantly. Conversely, strong congruent non-verbal communication amplifies and reinforces verbal messages, creating credibility and persuasive power. The truth leakage phenomenon reveals why non-verbal signals communicate more honestly than words. While people can carefully control what they say, choosing words deliberately to create desired impression, non-verbal signals leak true feelings and attitudes through channels operating below conscious awareness. Micro-expressions flash across faces, revealing genuine emotion before conscious control can impose socially appropriate mask. Posture shifts unconsciously, reflecting comfort or discomfort. Pupils dilate or constrict based on interest or aversion. These automatic signals provide window into genuine internal state that skilled observers can read despite verbal attempts to conceal or misrepresent feelings. The primacy effect in person perception shows that nonverbal first impressions form within seconds of meeting someone and prove remarkably resistant to change through subsequent verbal interaction. Research demonstrates that observers form judgments about competence, trustworthiness, and status within 7 seconds based purely on appearance, posture, and initial nonverbal behavior before any substantive verbal exchange occurs. These rapid nonverbal assessments then create confirmation bias, where subsequent verbal content gets interpreted through lens of initial impression, making strong nonverbal first impression essential for positive perception trajectory. The cultural variation awareness acknowledges crucial reality that while some nonverbal signals are universal across all human cultures, many are culturally specific, requiring contextual knowledge for accurate interpretation and appropriate deployment. The 6 basic emotions of happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, and surprise produce universally recognized facial expressions across all studied cultures, suggesting evolutionary hardwired bases. However, norms for eye contact, appropriate interpersonal distance, touch, and many gestures vary dramatically across cultural contexts. Direct, sustained eye contact communicates confidence and honesty in most Western cultures, but can signal disrespect or aggression in many Asian and some other cultural contexts. Understanding your specific cultural environment prevents both misreading other signals and accidentally communicating unintended messages through culturally inappropriate nonverbal behavior. The simultaneous channel operation means that effective nonverbal communication requires managing multiple channels simultaneously, creating congruent aligned message across all channels. You cannot focus exclusively on maintaining strong eye contact while ignoring closed, defensive posture or nervous, fidgeting hands or uncertain rising vocal inflection, because recipients process all channels together, forming overall impression from total signal package. This simultaneity makes nonverbal mastery more complex than learning isolated techniques, requiring integrated practice where all elements align naturally. The implementation requires deeply understanding that nonverbal channels carry majority of communication impact, especially for emotional and relational messages. Recognizing all 7 major nonverbal channels that operate simultaneously in every interaction, ensuring congruence between verbal content and nonverbal signals across all channels. Developing awareness of cultural context, shaping nonverbal norms and interpretations, and treating comprehensive nonverbal awareness as essential foundation for all subsequent strategic mastery, where ignorance of fundamentals prevented effective influence development. Nonverbal dominates communication. Master the silent channels. Align signals or send mixed messages, undermining words. You understand now that Moravian research shows nonverbal dominance, that 7 channels operate simultaneously, that congruence determines credibility, that cultural context shapes interpretation, and that Chapter 1 provides foundational knowledge, making strategic nonverbal mastery possible, where lack of fundamental understanding prevented effective skill development. Chapter 2: Strategy to master power posture and physical presence. Chapter 2 masters power posture and physical presence, creating immediate nonverbal signals of confidence, authority, and high status. The power posture definition shows that body positioning and spatial expansion communicate dominance, confidence, or conversely submission, and insecurity instantly before any words are spoken or any other interaction occurs. That expansive open postures with chest exposed, limbs spread, and body taking up more space signal confidence and high status, while closed contracted postures with crossed limbs, hunched shoulders, and minimal space occupation signal insecurity and low status. That posture affects not only how others perceive you externally, but also how you feel internally through embodied cognition feedback loops, and understanding that deliberate posture control is foundational nonverbal influence skill accessible to anyone willing to practice regardless of natural tendencies or physical characteristics. Posture communicates power instantly. Stand tall, open, grounded. Project strength or broadcast weakness through stance. The Amy Cuddy power posing research revolutionized understanding of posture effects by demonstrating that holding expansive power poses for just 2 minutes produces measurable hormonal changes, including increased testosterone associated with dominance and confidence, plus decreased cortisol associated with stress and anxiety. Participants who held power poses before high-stakes situations, including job interviews, performed better and were rated more favorably than control participants who held neutral or closed postures. This research reveals that posture is not merely external display for others, but powerful tool for internal state management, where adopting confident posture actually creates genuine confidence through physiological feedback mechanisms. The body shapes the mind as much as mind shapes body. The power posture elements break down into specific controllable components that combine to create overall impression of strength and confidence. Straight elongated spine creates vertical alignment, projecting height and presence, rather than collapsed hunched impression that makes you appear smaller and uncertain. Shoulders pulled back and down opens chest area, displaying vulnerability that paradoxically signals confidence, because only confident individuals expose vulnerable areas, while insecure individuals protect chest through hunched shoulders. Head level or slightly elevated rather than tilted down maintains eye-level access and prevents submission signals that downward head tilt communicates. Feet position shoulder width or slightly wider creates stable grounded base, suggesting you cannot be easily moved or unbalanced, while narrow stance suggests instability and tentative presence. Arms uncrossed and away from body torso expand spatial footprint, claiming more territory, signaling status. The situational power pose application means using power posing strategically before important interactions to create genuine internal confidence that then expresses naturally through authentic nonverbal signals. Before job interview, presentation, negotiation, difficult conversation, or any high-stakes interaction, spend 2 minutes alone adopting expansive power pose such as standing with feet wide, arms raised in victory position, or sitting with feet on desk and hands behind head. This brief private power posing creates hormonal and psychological shift that carries into subsequent interaction, improving performance and presence without requiring you to consciously maintain artificial posture during actual interaction. The continuous posture awareness during interactions requires developing habit of periodically checking your posture and correcting toward open expansive positioning when you notice collapse into closed defensive postures. Under stress, people naturally contract into protective postures, crossing arms, hunching shoulders, making themselves small. Developing awareness of this tendency and consciously reopening posture counteracts stress response, preventing closed body language from broadcasting insecurity during precisely the moments when projecting confidence matters most. The standing versus sitting distinction acknowledges different optimal postures for each position. When standing, weight balanced evenly on both feet rather than shifting or leaning communicates groundedness. Hands out of pockets and visible prevents closed appearance. When sitting, claiming armrests, sprawling somewhat rather than perching on edge or making yourself small projects confidence and status. Leaning slightly back rather than forward suggests relaxed confidence, though context matters, as forward lean can also signal engagement and interest in appropriate situations. The gender considerations acknowledge that women face different social expectations around posture and space, claiming with expansive postures sometimes penalized as unfeminine or aggressive. However, research shows that appropriate confident posture benefits women's perceived competence and leadership potential as much or more than men's, making posture mastery essential for women while requiring additional calibration to cultural expectations that expansive posture challenges. The postural congruence with message ensures that physical positioning aligns with verbal content and intention. Delivering confident statement while collapsed in submissive posture creates incongruence that undermines message. Expressing warmth and openness while maintaining rigid closed posture contradicts verbal message. Matching posture to message amplifies communication impact through reinforcing congruence across channels. The implementation requires practicing power poses for 2 minutes before important interactions, creating hormonal and psychological confidence boost. Maintaining awareness of posture during interactions, consciously correcting toward open expansive positioning when you notice collapse, adopting standing and sitting positions that project groundedness and confidence rather than tentative uncertainty. Using all power posture elements including straight spine, shoulders back, level head, stable stance and open arms, and treating power posture mastery as creating both external perception of confidence and internal experience of genuine confidence, where collapsed posture created both appearance and experience of weakness and insecurity. Posture communicates power instantly. Stand tall, open, grounded. Project strength or broadcast weakness through stance. You understand now that power posing creates hormonal confidence boost, that posture affects both others' perception and your own internal state, that specific elements combine to project strength, that situational application optimizes performance, and that Chapter 2 provides posture mastery, making powerful presence possible where unconscious collapsed posture broadcasted weakness. Chapter 3. Strategy 3. Use eye contact for connection and authority. Chapter 3 uses eye contact strategically, creating connection, trust, and authority through intentional calibrated gaze control. The eye contact power shows that appropriate sustained eye contact creates multiple positive perceptions, including trustworthiness, competence, confidence, and interest in the other person, that avoiding eye contact reliably signals dishonesty, social anxiety, discomfort, or low confidence, creating negative impressions regardless of actual character or intent. That excessive unbroken staring creates discomfort or communicates aggression, making calibration essential, and understanding that mastering eye contact duration, timing, and strategic variation is among the most powerful accessible influence skills, because eye behavior communicates directly about character, capability, and emotional state. Eye contact creates connection and authority. Hold appropriate gaze. Engage visually or communicate avoidance. The optimal duration research attempting to quantify ideal eye contact percentage suggests maintaining eye contact for approximately 60 to 70% of total conversation time, with important qualifications about context and cultural variation. This 60-70% baseline feels natural and engaged to most people while avoiding both the discomfort of complete avoidance and the intensity of constant unbroken staring. Within this overall percentage, research indicates slightly different patterns for speaking versus listening, with most people naturally maintaining somewhat less eye contact while speaking when cognitive load of formulating thoughts reduces attention available for sustained gaze, and somewhat more eye contact while listening when reduced cognitive demand allows more visual attention. The speaking eye contact application means deliberately maintaining stronger eye contact than feels natural when delivering important messages, key points, or statements requiring emphasis. Most people unconsciously reduce eye contact when speaking, particularly when discussing difficult topics or making important claims, because looking away reduces intensity and social pressure. However, reducing eye contact while making important statement undermines credibility and emphasis, because listeners interpret gaze aversion as uncertainty, dishonesty, or discomfort with the claim being made. Consciously maintaining eye contact while delivering key points dramatically increases perceived confidence and credibility of those statements. The listening eye contact variation shows that increasing eye contact percentage while listening communicates interest, engagement, and respect for the speaker. Looking at speaker attentively while they talk signals that you value what they are saying and find them interesting, creating positive impression and building rapport. This listening eye contact should include occasional brief breaks, preventing stare-down intensity while maintaining overall high percentage of gaze directed toward speaker. The brief breaks can involve looking down momentarily, suggesting contemplation of what speaker said rather than looking away to the side, suggesting distraction or dismissal. The authority versus rapport distinction reveals strategic variation in eye contact patterns serving different influence goals. When primary goal is establishing authority dominance or confidence, such as in negotiations, presentations, or leadership contexts, holding strong sustained eye contact, particularly while speaking, communicates certainty and strength. When primary goal is building rapport, connection, or collaborative relationship, slightly softer, more variable eye contact, including looking down briefly rather than holding dominant gaze, creates warmth and approachability. Understanding this distinction enables tactical variation, matching eye contact strategy to specific influence objective. The cultural variation critical reminder acknowledges that eye contact norms vary dramatically across cultural contexts, making universal prescriptions problematic. While direct eye contact generally signals confidence and honesty in most Western European and North American cultures, many Asian, African, and Latin American cultures consider sustained direct eye contact disrespectful, particularly from lower status to higher status individuals. Working across cultural contexts requires researching specific norms and observing respected high status individuals in that culture to calibrate appropriate eye contact levels. When uncertain, towards slightly less eye contact than feels natural in your origin culture, then adjust based on feedback. The eye contact initiation in groups requires strategic distribution of gaze across all participants, with emphasis on decision makers and influencers. In group presentations or meetings, scan all attendees, making individual eye contact with each person briefly, rather than staring at single person or looking over heads of audience. When making particularly important point, hold gaze with highest status person or key decision maker for that statement, creating one-on-one connection moment within group context. This distributed but strategically focused eye contact pattern creates inclusive, engaged feeling while still emphasizing key relationships. The avoidance pattern awareness means noticing when you habitually reduce eye contact and consciously correcting this tendency. Many people unconsciously look away when nervous discussing difficult topics, making requests, or receiving criticism. Becoming aware of your personal eye contact avoidance triggers enables deliberate compensation, maintaining visual engagement during precisely the moments when looking away would communicate weakness, insecurity, or dishonesty. The implementation requires establishing baseline of 60 to 70% eye contact across conversations, consciously increasing eye contact percentage when delivering important points or emphasizing key statements, maintaining high engaged eye contact while listening to demonstrate interest and respect. Varying eye contact strategy between authority-focused sustained gaze and rapport-focused softer variable gaze based on specific influence goals. Researching and respecting cultural eye contact norms when working across cultural contexts. Distributing eye contact across all group members while emphasizing key decision makers, and treating eye contact mastery as powerful, accessible influence skill, where habitual avoidance communicated weakness, uncertainty, or dishonesty, undermining all other communication. Eye contact creates connection and authority. Hold appropriate gaze, engage visually, or communicate avoidance. You understand now that 60-70% baseline feels natural, that speaking eye contact boosts statement credibility, that listening eye contact builds rapport, that strategy varies for authority versus connection, and that Chapter 3 provides eye contact mastery, making visual engagement powerful where avoidance created negative perceptions. Chapter 4. Strategy 4 deploys strategic touch to accelerate trust. Chapter 4 deploys strategic appropriate touch as powerful trust and connection accelerator when used with proper boundaries and cultural awareness. The touch research demonstrates that appropriate brief touch increases compliance, cooperation, positive evaluation, and perceived warmth across diverse contexts. That touch releases oxytocin, often called the bonding hormone, creating neurochemical foundation for trust and connection. That touch communicates care, attention, and status more powerfully than words can express. That touch is simultaneously the most powerful nonverbal influence tool when used appropriately and the most dangerous when boundaries are violated. And understanding that touch mastery requires deep understanding of appropriateness, cultural context, power dynamics, and consent, making it advanced influence skill requiring careful calibration. Appropriate touch accelerates trust and connection. Use strategically within boundaries. Deploy touch or responding opportunity. The touch appropriateness framework establishes that appropriate professional touch in most Western business contexts includes the handshake as universal greeting and parting ritual, brief touch to shoulder or upper arm when emphasizing point expressing concern or congratulating achievement, and high five or fist bump in more casual team environments. Inappropriate professional touch includes any contact below shoulders, prolonged contact beyond 2 to 3 seconds, repeated touching suggesting intimacy rather than professional warmth, and any touch that recipient appears uncomfortable with regardless of your intention. The appropriateness boundary is determined not by your intent but by recipient's comfort and cultural context, making observation and respect essential. The handshake mastery represents most universally appropriate and expected professional touch, making it critical nonverbal skill. Research shows that handshakes create more positive first impressions than any other greeting, that handshake quality affects hiring decisions, partnership formation, and negotiation outcomes, and that most people receive no training in this fundamental influence skill, leaving enormous room for improvement. Effective handshake includes firm, confident grip, neither limp and weak nor crushing and aggressive. Full palm contact, avoiding fingertip only or finger crusher grip styles. 2 to 3 vertical pumps, maintaining connection without excessive duration. Appropriate grip duration of approximately 2 to 3 seconds, and consistent eye contact throughout shake, creating dual connection through touch and gaze. The trust acceleration mechanism reveals why brief, appropriate touch creates disproportionate influence impact. Touch is evolutionarily ancient communication channel predicting language, processed in emotional limbic brain regions rather than rational cortex, creating immediate visceral response that bypasses logical skepticism. Brief shoulder touch while expressing appreciation creates embodied emotional reinforcement of verbal message, registering at deeper level than words alone could achieve. This neurological impact explains research findings that waitstaff receiving higher tips when briefly touching customers' arms or shoulders during service, that petition signers more likely to sign when touched appropriately by requester, and that students rated instructors more favorably when receiving brief, appropriate touch. The gender and power considerations acknowledge that touch carries different meanings and risks depending on gender and relative status. Higher status individuals initiate touch more frequently than lower status individuals, with touch initiation itself communicating status differential. Men touching women colleagues without reciprocal permission creates more problematic interpretation than reverse due to harassment concerns and power dynamics. These realities require additional caution with cross-gender touch in professional contexts, heightened awareness of recipient comfort signals, and absolute respect for any indication that touch is unwanted regardless of your benign intention. When uncertain about appropriateness on the side of not touching, preserving safety over missing influence opportunity. The cultural variation in touch norms varies even more dramatically than other nonverbal channels, with some cultures being contact cultures using touch frequently in normal social interaction, including Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, and Latin American cultures, while other cultures are non-contact cultures, reserving touch for intimate relationships, including most Asian, Northern European, and North American mainstream professional contexts. Working across cultural boundaries requires researching specific norms, observing respected high-status individuals in that culture, and taking cues from others, rather than assuming your cultural defaults are universal. International business requires particular care, as touch assumptions from your origin culture can seriously offend in receiving culture. The recipient feedback reading means observing carefully for any signs of discomfort with touch, including subtle lean away, facial expression change, verbal hesitation, or any other signal suggesting recipient is uncomfortable. The moment you detect any discomfort response, stop touching that person in future interactions, regardless of whether you believe your touch was appropriate. Their comfort determines appropriateness, not your intention. This requires suppressing ego defensiveness about having good intentions, and instead prioritizing recipient experience and boundaries above your influence goals. The strategic deployment timing suggests using touch sparingly at moments of particular importance, including initial greeting creating first impression, moments of congratulation or celebration reinforcing positive emotion, moments of empathetic connection supporting someone through difficulty, and moments emphasizing particularly important points in conversation. Strategic sparing use makes each touch more impactful than constant touching that dilutes effect and risks inappropriateness. The implementation requires mastering confident, firm, appropriate handshake as foundation of professional touch skill, using brief shoulder or upper arm touch sparingly to emphasize connection at strategic moments only when contextually appropriate, rigorously respecting all personal and cultural boundaries, prioritizing recipient comfort over influence goals, observing carefully for any recipient discomfort signals, and immediately ceasing touch with that individual if detected, researching cultural touch norms when working internationally or across cultural contexts, being particularly careful with cross-gender and cross-status touch given increased risks, and treating strategic touch as extraordinarily powerful trust accelerator when used appropriately while recognizing boundary violations, create opposite effect, destroying trust and creating severe negative consequences. Appropriate touch accelerates trust and connection. Use strategically within boundaries. Deploy touch or responding opportunity. You understand now that touch releases oxytocin, creating neurological bonding, that handshake mastery affects first impressions profoundly, that appropriateness determined by recipient comfort, not your intention, that cultural norms vary dramatically, and that Chapter 4 provides touch framework, making trust acceleration possible where touch avoidance or inappropriate touch missed opportunities or violated boundaries. Chapter 5. Strategy 5. Control facial expressions to shape perceptions. Chapter 5 controls facial expressions, deliberately shaping how others perceive your emotions, intentions, and character. The facial expression power shows that human faces communicate emotion more clearly, rapidly, and universally than any other nonverbal channel, that facial displays are processed extremely quickly, often below conscious awareness, creating immediate emotional responses in observers before any rational thought, that micro-expressions lasting only fractions of seconds reveal true feelings before conscious control can impose socially appropriate masks, that deliberate expression management shapes others' perceptions and emotional responses to you, and understanding that facial mastery requires both authentic emotional expression for genuine connection and strategic control for professional contexts where raw emotion display would be counterproductive. Faces reveal emotions instantly. Control expressions strategically. Manage your face or broadcast unintended feelings. The Universal Expressions framework established by Paul Ekman's pioneering research demonstrates that 6 basic emotions produce universally recognized facial expressions across all human cultures studied, including happiness with raised cheeks and lip corners, sadness with lowered lip corners and inner brow raise, anger with lowered brows and pressed lips, fear with raised brows and tensed lower eyelids, disgust with wrinkled nose and raised upper lip, and surprise with raised brows and dropped jaw. This universality suggests evolutionary hardwired bases, where these expressions were survival critical for communicating danger, safety, and social bonds before language evolved. Understanding these universal expressions enables both deliberate expression for communication and accurate reading of others' emotional states. The genuine versus fake smile distinction reveals critical difference between Duquesne smiles involving both mouth and eye muscles, creating crow's feet wrinkles beside eyes, versus fake smiles involving only mouth muscles put into smile shape while eyes remain unexpressive. Research shows that people detect this difference unconsciously even when unable to articulate what makes smiles seem genuine or fake. That Duquesne smiles create trust, warmth, and liking, while fake smiles create opposite impression of insincerity and manipulation. And that authentic positive emotion automatically produces Duquesne smiles, while deliberate smile attempts without genuine positive feeling produce only fake mouth smiles. This mechanism means you cannot fake genuine warm smile, effectively making cultivation of authentic positive emotion more valuable than smile technique training. This strategic smile deployment means finding genuine reasons to smile through cultivating positive emotional states rather than mechanically forcing mouth into smile shape. Before important interactions, think about something that genuinely creates positive emotion, whether personal memory, gratitude for current blessings, or genuine appreciation for opportunity you are entering. This authentic positive emotion automatically activates proper facial muscles, creating genuine Duquesne smile that communicates warmth and approachability effectively. The alternative of forcing fake smile without genuine positive emotion creates uncanny valley effect, where smile looks almost right but unconsciously triggers distrust. The neutral professional expression for contexts requiring seriousness involves relaxed, composed face, avoiding both excessive animation and completely frozen affect. Many professional contexts, including negotiations, delivering serious news, or formal presentations, require maintaining composed neutral expression rather than constant smiling. Neutral expression should avoid tense frown or scowl that communicates hostility, instead maintaining slight softness around eyes and mouth, suggesting openness while remaining appropriately serious. This neutral baseline enables strategic deployment of smile or other expressions for emphasis at chosen moments, rather than constant inappropriate cheerfulness. The micro-expression awareness and control addresses brief, involuntary facial displays that flash across faces, revealing true emotion before conscious control suppresses them. When you hear frustrating news, micro-expression of anger might flash across face in fraction of a second before you compose neutral professional response. Skilled observers or slow-motion video can detect these micro-expressions, revealing your authentic emotional response. While completely suppressing micro-expressions proves nearly impossible without extensive training, awareness of your tendency to leak certain emotions enables partial control and compensation, such as deliberately relaxing face after you feel flash of negative emotion, preventing it from settling into sustained negative expression. The expression-emotion feedback loop reveals that facial expressions not only display emotion, but also influence emotional experience through embodied cognition mechanisms. Forcing smile even without genuine positive emotion creates small positive mood boost. Maintaining relaxed expression reduces stress response. This bidirectional relationship means strategic expression management serves both external influence goals and internal emotional regulation goals simultaneously. The cultural display rules modify universal expressions through cultural learning about when and how strongly to express emotion. Many Asian cultures value emotional restraint, leading to more subdued expression of even universal emotions. Mediterranean and Latin cultures encourage more expressive emotional display. Professional Western business culture typically encourages restrained positive expression while suppressing negative emotion display. Understanding cultural context prevents misreading others' subdued expressions as indicating less feeling than actually experienced, and guides appropriate intensity of your own expressions. The congruence across channels requires ensuring facial expressions align with verbal content and other non-verbal signals. Saying you are excited about opportunity while maintaining completely flat neutral expression creates incongruence, undermining verbal message. Delivering serious important message while smiling inappropriately creates confusion about whether situation is actually serious. Matching facial expression to message content amplifies communication through multi-channel reinforcement. The implementation requires developing awareness of your facial expressions, including unconscious habits and micro-expressions that may contradict intended messages. Cultivating genuine positive emotions before important interactions, enabling authentic Duquesne smiles rather than forced fake smiles. Maintaining composed neutral expression in serious professional contexts while deploying strategic smiles for warmth and connection at appropriate moments. Managing micro-expression leakage through awareness and deliberate relaxation after emotional flashes. Understanding cultural display rules shaping appropriate expression intensity. Ensuring facial expressions align with verbal content and other nonverbal channels, and treating facial expression as powerful, controllable influence channel where unconscious expression broadcasts unintended emotions, undermining strategic communication. Faces reveal emotions instantly. Control expressions strategically. Manage your face or broadcast unintended feelings. You understand now that 6 universal expressions communicate across cultures. That genuine Duquesne smiles create trust while fake smiles backfire. That micro-expressions leak true feelings. That cultural rules shape appropriate intensity. And that Chapter 5 provides facial mastery, making emotional communication strategic where unconscious expression leaked unintended signals. Chapter 6. Strategy 6. Use space and proximity to establish territory. Chapter 6 uses space and proximity, strategically establishing territory, managing interpersonal distance, and communicating status through spatial behavior. The proxemics principle established by anthropologist Edward T. Hall shows that space use communicates relationship intimacy status and cultural norms, that different distances carry different psychological and social meanings, that violating appropriate distance norms creates discomfort, even when we cannot articulate why. That respecting spatial boundaries creates comfort and trust, while violations create anxiety or aggression. And understanding that spatial awareness and strategic space use is essential influence skill that most people execute unconsciously without deliberate consideration, leaving enormous room for strategic improvement. Space use communicates status and boundaries. Claim territory strategically. Expand presence or appear small. The distance zones framework divides interpersonal space into 4 concentric zones, each appropriate for different relationship types in mainstream North American professional culture. Intimate zone from 0 to 18 inches is reserved for close personal relationships, including romantic partners, family, and closest friends, with intrusion by strangers or professional contacts creating strong discomfort. Personal zone from 18 inches to 4 feet is appropriate for friends and familiar colleagues where comfortable conversations occur with some personal disclosure. Social zone from 4 to 12 feet is standard professional interaction distance for business conversations, meetings, and polite social interactions. Public zone beyond 12 feet is appropriate for formal presentations, speeches, and interactions with large groups. Understanding these zones enables maintaining appropriate distance for each relationship type, preventing discomfort from inappropriate proximity. The territory claiming behavior communicates status, confidence, and dominance through spatial expansion. Higher status individuals claim more space, spreading papers across conference tables, placing bags on adjacent seats, extending arms on armrests, and generally occupying larger spatial footprint than their physical body requires. Lower status individuals minimize spatial presence, keeping belongings compact, yielding armrests to others, and generally making themselves small. Deliberately expanding your spatial presence through controlled, comfortable sprawl claims territory, signaling confidence and status. This expansion should appear natural and comfortable rather than aggressive or hostile, requiring calibrated deployment that expands presence without appearing to deliberately invade others' space disrespectfully. The strategic approach in distance management means consciously choosing interpersonal distance based on relationship stage and interaction goals. When building initial relationship, maintaining slightly greater distance respects boundaries and prevents discomfort, allowing trust to develop before proximity increases. As relationship develops, subtle distance reduction signals growing comfort and intimacy. In negotiations, maintaining slightly greater distance preserves formality and authority, while closing distance can soften interaction, encouraging collaboration. Sales contexts often involve gradually reducing distance as rapport builds, physically embodying the metaphorical closing of distance between seller and buyer. Each context requires calibrated distance serving strategic goals. The cultural distance variation differs even more dramatically than other nonverbal channels, with contact cultures, including Mediterranean, Middle Eastern, and Latin American cultures, maintaining closer conversational distances, often 12 to 18 inches, while non-contact cultures, including Northern European, East Asian, and mainstream North American professional cultures, prefer greater distances, often 3 to 4 feet. Working across cultural boundaries without awareness of these different distance norms creates problems, with contact culture individuals experiencing non-contact distance as cold and unfriendly, while non-contact culture individuals experiencing contact culture proximity as invasive and aggressive. Research your specific cultural context and observe respected high-status individuals to calibrate appropriate distance. The seating position strategy in meetings and negotiations recognizes that spatial positioning relative to others communicates relationship and influences interaction dynamics. Sitting directly across table creates confrontation or competitive dynamic appropriate for formal negotiations, but problematic for collaborative work. Sitting at 90-degree angle at corner of table creates collaborative balance dynamic appropriate for teamwork and coaching. Sitting side by side creates intimate collaborative feeling appropriate for very close partnerships, but potentially inappropriate for maintaining professional boundaries. Understanding these dynamics enables strategic seating choice, matching goals, whether creating formal authority, maintaining collaboration, or building intimacy. The personal space violation response requires asserting boundaries when others intrude inappropriately into your space. Many people experience discomfort from space violations, but tolerate them politely without asserting boundaries, allowing ongoing violation that creates continuous stress. Appropriate boundary assertion includes subtle step back, increasing distance, turning body slightly away, reducing intimacy, verbal statement like "I need a bit more space here," or in persistent cases, direct confrontation about inappropriate proximity. Tolerating violations communicates that you have weak boundaries, encouraging continued violation, while appropriate assertion establishes respect. The environmental space claiming in shared environments includes strategies for establishing presence and territory in offices, conference rooms, and public spaces. Arriving early to claim preferred seating, placing personal items to mark territory, and maintaining expanded comfortable posture all signal confidence and status. In open plan offices, Personalizing workspace with photos, plants, or other items claims territory, making it psychologically yours rather than generic unknown space. These territorial markers should establish presence without being so excessive that they appear desperate or violate others' legitimate space needs. The implementation requires understanding for distance zones and maintaining appropriate distance for each relationship type, expanding spatial presence through comfortable controlled sprawl, claiming more territory to signal confidence and status, calibrating interpersonal distance, strategically based on relationship stage interaction goals and cultural context. Choosing seating positions that support your goals, whether creating formality, collaboration, or intimacy. Researching and respecting cultural distance norms when working across cultural boundaries. Asserting boundaries appropriately when others violate your space. Claiming environmental territory in shared spaces through early arrival personal items and expanded presence. And treating spatial awareness as strategic influence skill where unconscious space use left territory unclaimed or violated distance norms creating discomfort. Space use communicates status and boundaries. Claim territory strategically. Expand presence or appear small. You understand now that 4 zones govern appropriate distance, that territory claiming signals status, that cultural norms vary dramatically, that seating position influences dynamics, and that Chapter 6 provides spatial mastery making territory establishment strategic where unconscious space use appeared small or violated norms. Chapter 7. Strategy 7 modulate vocal tone and pace for maximum impact. Chapter 7 modulates vocal tone, pace, volume, and other paralinguistic elements, creating maximum message impact through strategic voice control. The vocal influence power shows that how you say something affects emotional impact and persuasiveness far more than what you actually say when communicating attitudes, feelings, and character. That vocal tone, pitch, pace, and volume communicate confidence, emotion, status, and authenticity, often contradicting or reinforcing verbal content. That strategic pacing and pausing control attention and create emphasis, making certain content more memorable and impactful. That voice training is among the most neglected influence skills despite enormous impact potential, and understanding that vocal mastery is essential silent influence because voice carries extensive nonverbal signals, even during verbal communication, making it critical bridge between purely nonverbal and verbal channels. Voice tone carries emotional impact. Speak with resonance and authority. Control your voice or sound uncertain. The confident voice production elements begin with diaphragmatic breathing and speaking from diaphragm rather than chest or throat, creating fuller, more resonant tone that projects authority and confidence. Most people breathe shallowly from chest, producing thin, reedy voice lacking power and resonance. Breathing deeply from diaphragm, allowing belly to expand on inhalation, then speaking while contracting diaphragm produces richer, fuller vocal tone that commands attention and communicates confidence. This single technical adjustment often transforms weak, uncertain sounding voice into powerful, confident instrument. Practice diaphragmatic breathing through placing hand on belly and ensuring it expands on inhalation rather than chest rising. The inflection pattern distinction shows that downward inflection at sentence endings communicates authority, certainty, and completion, while upward inflection creates uncertainty, tentative, questioning tone, even for statements not questions. Many speakers, particularly women, unconsciously use upward inflection, even when making definitive statements, creating impression of uncertainty, seeking approval, or lacking confidence. Consciously using downward inflection when making statements, claims, assertions, or delivering conclusions communicates decisiveness and authority. Reserve upward inflection exclusively for actual questions. This simple pattern change dramatically increases perceived confidence and authority. Record yourself speaking and listen for unconscious upward inflections on statements, then practice deliberate downward inflections on declarative sentences. The pace and pausing strategy reveals that strategic variation in speaking speed and deliberate silence creates emphasis, controls attention, and communicates confidence. Nervous speakers rush, talking rapidly without breaks, creating stream of words that overwhelm listeners and communicate anxiety. Confident speakers vary pace using moderate, deliberate pace for most content, then slowing for particularly important points and incorporating strategic pauses before and after key ideas. Pausing feels uncomfortable initially because silence creates social pressure, but this discomfort is precisely what makes pauses powerful. Person comfortable with silence communicates supreme confidence, because only confident individuals can tolerate attention-filled silence without rushing to fill it nervously. Practice incorporating 2 to 3 second pauses before delivering your most important points and again after to let them sink in. The volume and projection control means speaking at volume sufficient to be heard clearly without straining, requiring project from diaphragm rather than straining throat. Soft, quiet speaking can communicate intimacy in appropriate contexts, but in professional settings often signals uncertainty, weakness, or lack of confidence. Speaking too loudly can appear aggressive or domineering, requiring calibration to context. Ideal volume fills the space appropriately, making everyone comfortable hearing you without straining while not overwhelming. Project voice to reach furthest listener in room rather than only closest, ensuring everyone hears clearly without shouting. This requires support from diaphragm breath control. The filler word elimination addresses verbal crutches, including like you know and similar filler words that undermine message clarity and communicate nervousness or uncertainty. Everyone uses some filler words, but excessive use creates impression of confused thinking or lack of preparation. Becoming aware of your particular filler word habits through recording and listening to yourself enables deliberate reduction, replacing filler words with brief silence. The silence feels uncomfortable initially, but sounds far more professional and confident than verbal stumbling. Practice exercises include reading aloud and immediately restarting any sentence containing filler word, training yourself to pause rather than fill silence with verbal noise. The monotone avoidance through strategic vocal variety maintains listener engagement and communicates enthusiasm, appropriate emotion, and authentic investment in message. Speaking in unchanging monotone regardless of content creates boredom and suggests disengagement or depression. Strategic variation in pitch, pace, volume, and emotional tone keeps listeners engaged while communicating that you find your own message interesting and important. Practice exaggerating vocal variety beyond comfort zone to develop range, then modulate back to professionally appropriate level. Most people are toward insufficient variety, making excess during practice unlikely. The matching and mirroring vocal patterns of others when building rapport includes subtly matching their pace, volume, and energy level. Person speaking quickly and energetically matched with very slow, deliberate pace creates disconnect. Subtle matching creates unconscious sense of similarity and connection. This matching should be delayed by several seconds and sufficiently subtle to avoid obvious mimicry, but research shows even unconscious matching improves rapport and persuasiveness. The implementation requires practicing diaphragmatic breathing and speaking from diaphragm rather than chest, creating fuller, more resonant vocal tone. Using deliberate downward inflection at statement endings, communicating authority rather than unconscious upward inflection, suggesting uncertainty. Incorporating strategic pauses before and after important points, controlling attention and communicating confidence through comfort with silence. Speaking at appropriate volume, projecting to reach all listeners without strain or aggression. Eliminating filler words through awareness and practice replacing them with brief silence. Varying pace, pitch, and volume, strategically maintaining engagement and communicating enthusiasm. And treating voice as powerful, trainable influence instrument where unconscious vocal patterns undermine message through weak tone, uncertain inflection, nervous pace, or monotonous delivery. Voice tone carries emotional impact. Speak with resonance and authority. Control your voice or sound uncertain. You understand now that diaphragmatic speaking creates resonant authority, that downward inflection communicates certainty while upward sounds uncertain, that strategic pausing creates emphasis and confidence, that volume should fill space appropriately, and that Chapter 7 provides vocal mastery, making powerful speaking possible where unconscious voice patterns communicated weakness. Chapter 8. Strategy 8. Read others' nonverbal signals accurately. Chapter 8 reads others' nonverbal signals accurately, enabling real-time calibration and adaptive influence. The signal reading importance shows that accurate nonverbal reading enables moment-to-moment adjustment of approach based on recipient response. That continuing ineffective strategy because you missed or ignored negative feedback signals wastes time and damages relationships. That reading others' reactions allows course correction before minor concerns escalate to major problems. That accurate reading multiplies your influence effectiveness through enabling responsive adaptation, and understanding that reading skill requires systematic observation practice and avoiding common interpretation errors that most untrained observers make consistently. Read others' signals for real-time calibration. Look for clusters and baselines. Adapt to signals or miss crucial feedback. The baseline establishment principle establishes that accurate reading requires first observing individuals' normal nonverbal patterns before attempting to read deviations that indicate emotional changes. Every person has unique baseline, including typical facial expressiveness, usual posture and movement patterns, normal eye contact behavior, and characteristic nervous habits or gestures. One person's relaxed state might involve considerable animation, while another person's relaxed state appears quite reserved. Attempting to read emotions without knowing baseline creates misinterpretation, where you incorrectly identify their normal behavior as indicating emotion. Spend initial time with new persons simply observing their baseline patterns across contexts before attempting to read deviations as emotional signals. The deviation significance shows that changes from established baseline indicate emotional shifts warranting attention and response. Person normally maintaining steady eye contact who suddenly begins avoiding gaze signals discomfort, anxiety, or disagreement requiring exploration. Person typically sitting upright who slumps or closes posture signals discouragement, overwhelm, or withdrawal. These deviations from baseline are meaningful signals, while similar behaviors might be meaningless in person for whom they represent normal baseline. This baseline deviation framework prevents misreading while enabling accurate detection of genuine emotional changes. The cluster reading principle establishes that single isolated signals are unreliable, while clusters of multiple consistent signals provide accurate reading. Crossed arms alone could indicate cold room, comfortable habit, or defensive emotion, making single signal ambiguous. Crossed arms combined with leaning back, reduced eye contact, and pursed lips creates cluster clearly indicating defensiveness or disagreement. Similarly, forward lean alone could indicate engagement or aggression, but forward lean combined with relaxed open posture, frequent nodding, and sustained eye contact clearly indicates positive engagement. Training yourself to look for clusters of 3 or more consistent signals rather than reacting to single ambiguous signals dramatically improves reading accuracy. The context integration means interpreting signals within appropriate situational context, preventing misinterpretation of behaviors that are contextually appropriate. Person fidgeting during long meeting might simply need movement, not indicate anxiety. Person maintaining greater distance in crowded elevator is responding to spatial constraints, not rejecting connection. Person appearing closed and reserved during first meeting might display their normal cautious behavior with strangers, not specific reaction to you. Incorporating context into interpretation prevents incorrect personal attribution of behaviors better explained by situation. The congruence checking examines whether multiple nonverbal channels send consistent messages or contradictory signals indicating mixed feelings or deception attempts. Person saying they agree while displaying contradictory body language, including crossed arms, minimal eye contact, and forced smile likely experiences internal conflict between stated agreement and true reluctance. These incongruent signals warrant gentle exploration through questions, like I sense some hesitation about this plan, enabling them to express reservations they were suppressing. Congruence checking across channels provides more reliable reading than any single channel alone. The discomfort and stress signals include particular importance in professional contexts where recognizing others' stress enables supportive response. Common stress signals include increased fidgeting or self-touching behaviors like face touching or hair adjustment, postural shifts, and reduced openness, reduced eye contact, or increased rapid blinking. Vocal changes including higher pitch, faster pace, or increased filler words, and facial tension particularly around eyes and jaw. Recognizing stress signals enables empathetic response, reducing their discomfort through slowing your pace, simplifying your message, or directly acknowledging and addressing their concern. The engagement signals indicate interest, attention, and positive response to your message, including forward body lean toward you, steady appropriate eye contact, facial expressions matching emotional content, head nodding indicating agreement or understanding, questions and comments showing active processing, and overall body orientation directing toward you. These positive signals indicate your approach is working well, warranting continuation of current strategy. Absence of engagement signals suggests need for approach adjustment. The disengagement signals indicate lost attention, disagreement, or desire to leave, including backward lean or physical distancing, reduced eye contact or gaze directed away, closed or contracted posture, reduced facial expressiveness or incongruent expressions, checking watch or phone, and body orientation angling away toward exit. These signals require immediate response, either directly addressing apparent concern, taking break to reset, or concluding interaction rather than pushing forward, ignoring clear disengagement. The implementation requires establishing baseline patterns for individuals through initial observation before attempting to read deviations, looking for clusters of 3 or more consistent signals rather than reacting to single ambiguous behaviors, incorporating situational context into interpretation, preventing incorrect attribution, checking for congruence across multiple channels, identifying mixed messages, recognizing common stress signals, enabling supportive, empathetic response, reading engagement signals confirming your approach effectiveness, detecting disengagement signals requiring immediate strategy adjustment, and treating signal reading as enabling adaptive responsive influence where ignoring or misreading feedback prevented calibration, continuing ineffective approach until failure. Read others' signals for real-time calibration. Look for clusters and baselines. Adapt to signals or miss crucial feedback. You understand now that baseline establishment prevents misreading normal behavior, that deviations from baseline indicate emotional changes, that clusters provide reliable reading, that context prevents misinterpretation, and that Chapter 8 provides reading mastery, making adaptive influence possible, where signal blindness prevented responsive calibration. Chapter 9. Strategy 9. Mirror and match to build unconscious rapport. Chapter 9 mirrors and matches others' nonverbal patterns, building unconscious rapport and connection through strategic behavioral synchronization. The mirroring research demonstrates that subtle matching of others' posture, gestures, facial expressions, and speech patterns increases liking, trust, cooperation, and persuasiveness. That this mirroring operates largely unconsciously, creating feelings of similarity, connection, and rapport without conscious awareness of the mechanism. That obvious deliberate mirroring feels mocking or manipulative, while subtle delayed mirroring feels natural and creates genuine positive connection. That mirroring is human, universal, occurring spontaneously between people who already like each other, making deliberate mirroring effective because it activates existing natural rapport mechanism. And understanding that strategic subtle mirroring is powerful rapport accelerator when executed with appropriate delay and natural integration. Subtle mirroring builds unconscious rapport. Match posture and energy naturally. Create connection or remain separate. The elements to mirror include multiple behavioral dimensions, each contributing to overall synchronization effect. Overall posture and body positioning provides foundation with subtle matching of whether other person sits upright or relaxed, open or closed, leaning forward or back, creating parallel physical orientation. Energy level and animation degree matches their behavioral intensity, with subdued response to reserved person and more animated response to energetic person. Speech pace and volume creates vocal synchronization, with faster speech matching energetic speaker and slower pace matching deliberate speaker. Breathing rhythm represents most subtle mirroring element visible through chest or shoulder movement, creating deep unconscious synchronization when matched. Each element contributes to overall feeling of being in sync, though most powerful effect comes from matching multiple elements simultaneously. The delayed matching principle establishes that immediate simultaneous mirroring appears obvious, manipulative, and mocking, while delayed matching by approximately 5 to 10 seconds appears natural and creates genuine connection without detection. When other person shifts posture, do not immediately mirror, but wait 5 to 10 seconds, then casually adopt similar position, as if shifting for your own comfort. This delay makes matching appear coincidental, natural, rather than deliberate mimicry. Research shows delayed matching creates same positive rapport effects as immediate matching, while avoiding the negative mockery perception that immediate matching risks. The delay also prevents excessive focus on matching, allowing natural attention to conversation content while matching operates in background. The subtlety requirement means matching overall pattern and energy rather than precisely copying specific gestures. Copying every specific gesture creates obvious mimicry. Matching general body orientation and energy level creates subtle synchronization. If they sit with legs crossed, you might cross legs or angle body similarly without exact duplication. If they gesture frequently with hands, you increase your hand gestures without copying their specific motions. This subtle approach creates synchrony feeling without obvious copying that would trigger detection and negative reaction. The selective matching focuses on positive neutral behaviors rather than matching negative signals or inappropriate behaviors. If other person displays closed defensive posture, Matching their closure reinforces negative state rather than building rapport. Instead, maintain your open positive posture, potentially drawing them toward more positive state through leading rather than following. Similarly, matching nervous, fidgeting, or signs of stress reinforces their discomfort. Focus matching on their positive, engaged moments rather than matching every behavior indiscriminately. This selective approach builds rapport around positive states. The rapport then led sequence starts with matching to build initial rapport, then gradually leads toward desired state once synchrony is established. Begin by matching their pace, energy, and posture, building unconscious connection through synchronization. Once rapport feels established through their increased engagement and openness, gradually shift your own non-verbal signals toward desired state, such as more open posture, more positive energy, or calmer pace. Many people unconsciously follow once rapport is established, allowing you to lead them toward more positive or productive states through your non-verbal shifts. The cross-cultural mirroring requires understanding that mirroring operates across all cultures, but specific behaviors appropriate for matching vary culturally. Matching animated gesturing works in Mediterranean cultures where gesturing is common, but appears odd in reserved Northern European contexts. Match behaviors that are normative and frequent in the specific cultural context you are operating within. Cultural research and observation of respected high-status individuals in that culture reveals which behaviors are appropriate for matching. The authenticity maintenance ensures mirroring enhances rather than replaces your authentic presence. Mirroring should operate as subtle background process while you remain genuinely engaged in conversation and authentic in your core identity and values. Excessive focus on mirroring or matching behaviors completely foreign to your nature appears fake and undermines connection. Select matching behaviors that feel natural to you personally within their general behavioral range. If they are extremely introverted and you are naturally extroverted, you can moderate your energy somewhat toward their level without completely suppressing your personality. The practice progression begins with conscious, deliberate matching requiring significant attention and effort initially, progresses to conscious competence where matching feels more natural, but still requires awareness, and eventually reaches unconscious competence where subtle matching operates automatically without conscious attention, enabling full focus on conversation content. This progression requires patient practice over weeks and months of deliberately matching in various interactions until the skill becomes integrated natural response. The implementation requires observing others' posture, energy, speech pace, and breathing patterns, subtly matching overall patterns rather than copying specific gestures with 5 to 10-second delay, focusing selective matching on their positive engaged behaviors rather than matching negative signals. Using rapport then led sequence building synchrony through matching then leading toward desired states, understanding cultural variation in which behaviors are appropriate for matching, maintaining authenticity by matching within your natural behavioral range, practicing deliberately until matching becomes unconscious automatic skill, and treating mirroring as creating unconscious connection and rapport where lack of synchrony kept interactions feeling disconnected and separate. Subtle mirroring builds unconscious rapport. Match posture and energy naturally. Create connection or remain separate. You understand now that delayed matching prevents detection, that subtlety creates natural feeling, that selective matching focuses on positive, that rapport enables leading, and that Chapter 9 provides mirroring mastery, making unconscious connection possible where lack of synchrony prevented rapport building. Chapter 10. Strategy 10. Integrate all elements into authentic powerful presence. Chapter 10 integrates all non-verbal elements into authentic congruent powerful presence, creating influence that operates without words. The integration principle shows that mastered individual elements must combine into natural authentic whole rather than mechanical execution of isolated techniques, that applying techniques mechanically without genuine integration appears fake, artificial, and manipulative, undermining rather than enhancing influence. That genuine integration requires sustained practice until techniques become natural automatic expressions of authentic self rather than consciously performed behaviors, and understanding that authentic powerful presence representing ultimate nonverbal mastery is the goal, not mechanical technique execution, where authenticity and congruence create maximum sustainable influence. Authentic integrated presence creates maximum influence. Align all elements naturally. Become congruent or appear mechanical fake. The congruence requirement establishes that all nonverbal channels must align with each other and with your genuine intention, creating unified, consistent message across all channels simultaneously. Powerful, confident posture combined with avoiding eye contact, uncertain vocal inflection, and closed facial expression creates incongruence that listeners detect unconsciously, triggering distrust regardless of which specific channel contradiction they notice consciously. True influence power comes from complete alignment, where every channel reinforces the same authentic message, whether confidence, warmth, authority, engagement, or any other intended communication. This congruence cannot be faked long-term, making authentic alignment with genuine intention essential for sustainable influence. The practice progression acknowledges realistic stages of skill development, from initial conscious incompetence, where you lack both skill and awareness, through conscious incompetence, where you recognize gaps in current capability, to conscious competence, where techniques work but require deliberate attention and effort. Finally, reaching unconscious competence, where skills operate automatically, naturally, without conscious focus, enabling full attention on interaction, content, and genuine connection. This progression requires patience, accepting that early mechanical practice feels awkward and artificial, while trusting that sustained practice enables eventual natural integration. Most people abandon practice during awkward conscious competence stage rather than persisting to unconscious natural mastery. The situational calibration mastery represents advanced integration skill of adapting nonverbal presence to specific context, goals, and relationships. Authority presence appropriate for negotiations, formal presentations, or disciplinary conversations differs substantially from rapport presence appropriate for collaborative team building, coaching, or relationship development. Authority presence involves more sustained eye contact, expanded territorial claiming, downward vocal inflections, and maintained distance. Rapport presence involves soft variable eye contact, less territorial expansion, more vocal variety and pausing, and reduced distance. Reading situation accurately and calibrating presence appropriately creates maximum effectiveness, rather than applying single default presence to all contexts regardless of fit. The authentic self-alignment ensures that integrated presence expresses genuine aspects of your character and values, rather than adopting completely artificial persona foreign to your nature. Some naturally introverted, reserved individuals achieve powerful presence through quiet, grounded confidence, rather than attempting to mimic extroverted, animated presence that feels completely inauthentic. Some naturally warm, collaborative individuals achieve influence through building genuine connection, rather than forcing authoritarian dominance that contradicts their values. Find your authentic, powerful presence within your genuine personality, rather than copying someone else's completely different style. Authenticity creates sustainable long-term presence, where artificial personas eventually crack under pressure. The values congruence principle establishes that nonverbal mastery serves your genuine intentions and values, not manipulation or deception. Using powerful presence to manipulate, deceive, or harm others violates ethical boundaries and ultimately backfires when incongruence between your true intentions and projected presence creates distrust. Conversely, using nonverbal mastery to communicate genuine confidence, competence, and care more effectively serves both your interests and others, creating win-win outcomes. Alignment between techniques and genuine positive intentions enables sustainable ethical influence. The continuous refinement mindset acknowledges that nonverbal mastery is lifelong practice, not achieved destination. Even after reaching unconscious competence, ongoing refinement through observation, feedback, and deliberate practice improves presence continuously. Recording yourself on video reveals unconscious habits and gaps invisible to your internal perception. Soliciting honest feedback from trusted colleagues or coaches provides external perspective on how your presence affects others. Observing highly effective communicators reveals techniques worth integrating. Treating mastery as continuous journey rather than binary achievement sustains improvement over decades. The cultural adaptation capability extends presence mastery across diverse cultural contexts, requiring understanding and respecting different cultural norms around nonverbal behavior. Professional presence effective in New York corporate environment requires modification for Tokyo business context, where different eye contact, distance, and animation norms apply. Developing cultural intelligence about nonverbal variation enables maintaining presence effectiveness across contexts rather than assuming single approach works universally. This adaptation requires research, observation, and humility about cultural differences. The feedback integration loop treats every interaction as practice opportunity and learning experience. After important interactions, briefly reflect on what worked well and what could improve. Did your presence create intended effect? Where did you notice incongruence or missed opportunities? What would you do differently next time? This reflection without self-criticism creates continuous improvement through honest assessment and adaptation. Over time, this feedback integration accelerates mastery development exponentially. The implementation requires practicing all 9 previous strategies until they operate automatically naturally without conscious attention, ensuring complete congruence across all non-verbal channels, creating unified aligned message, calibrating presence situationally between authority and rapport based on context and goals, aligning presence with your authentic personality and values, rather than adopting foreign artificial persona, using techniques ethically to communicate genuine intentions, not to manipulate or deceive, committing to continuous refinement through video feedback, observation, and practice, developing cultural adaptation capability, respecting diverse nonverbal norms, integrating feedback from every interaction into ongoing improvement, and treating authentic, powerful, integrated presence as ultimate goal where mechanical technique execution remained artificial and ineffective. You have learned 10 strategies for influencing without saying a word. Strategy 1: Understanding nonverbal fundamentals. Strategy 2: Mastering power posture. Strategy 3: Using eye contact. Strategy 4: Deploying strategic touch. Strategy 5: Controlling facial expressions. Strategy 6: Using space strategically. Strategy 7: Modulating voice. Strategy 8: Reading others' signals. Strategy 9: Mirroring for rapport. Strategy 10: Integrating into authentic presence. What matters now is implementing one strategy today. 5 immediate priorities. Adopt power posture before next important interaction. Maintain 60-70% eye contact in next conversation. Practice confident handshake. Observe someone's baseline nonverbal patterns. Subtly mirror colleagues' energy level. Start immediately. Practice consistently. Master silently. Stop relying only on words and start mastering silent influence. Stop weak contradictory signals and start powerful congruent presence. Master 10 nonverbal strategies. Practice deliberately every interaction and influence without saying a word through unwavering commitment starting right now today.